My name's Colin Hennis from CIBER UK, and thank you for joining this short webinar that we're putting on this morning. Really, the objective of the webinar is really to talk about the relevance of CIBER and SAP in the service provider space. Most people understand and have heard of SAP and probably associate it more with the classic ERP manufacturing companies. But here at CIBER, we've spent the last few years working with other service provider companies and found that the capabilities within the product are very applicable to the type of problems that hopefully you guys will recognise as we go through this presentation. First, I really just wanted to talk a little bit about what CIBER and SAP actually have as a relationship. You may or may not be aware that obviously SAP has had a long history in the ERP space and traditionally probably engaged with their customers directly. Today, SAP engages through most of its customers through partners like ourselves. CIBER have been a partner with SAP since '96. The reason for this really is it gives a number of benefits. It still gives people like yourselves access to a great bit of software and a great company like SAP, but it also allows people like us to bring in some industry expertise and some focus into the product set. One of SAP's great strengths is that it's got a very broad, deep capability set, but equally what we do is focus that capability set in on certain industry sectors. And obviously we're talking about the service provider today. It also allows you to get access to customers and projects that we've done in the past that are of a similar size. We very much focus on the small to medium-sized enterprise market, and as such, this allows us to understand the problems and the kind of issues that companies like yourselves will face. We recognise that many of you probably feel that SAP is a big boy's toy, and hopefully if you engage with us and certainly talk to our customers, you begin to understand that, most of our customers these days are certainly under 200 million turnover, many of them under 100, and we've got customers for as little as 10 million turnover. So it makes it very relevant to engage with a partner like ourselves, to work with you. It gives us the ability to be more intimate with your business, to understand your business better, but still bring to bear the same software and the same capabilities, the same support capabilities that SAP can offer. Just some rough facts about CIBER on this slide really gives you, the only thing really you should take away from it is that, we're not a two-man and his dog outfit. We've got the breadth, depth and capability support small to medium-sized enterprises wherever they are in the world, whatever they want to do. We have a broad portfolio of services that are outside of SAP. We're obviously talking to you about SAP today, but that also enables us to have a bit of a holistic look at what you're doing, and whether it's support, whether it's around the Microsoft areas, whether it's around Oracle, or obviously particularly around SAP for today's discussion. It just allows us to look at this in a much broader context than just trying to sell you a piece of software. Now, SOP Practice is quite significant in its own right. So again, what you don't want to be dealing with is people who are learning on the job. Most of our consultants have circa 10 years experience. We wouldn't deploy anybody with under 5 years experience in SAP. And we very much work with our customers on a true partnership basis, which again is very much an overused term, but it is the way we engage today. So we're here to talk to you today about the service provider sector, a bit of a strange term that some of you may or may not recognise. It's a kind of catch-all that SAP uses. It's an SAP term. And I'll talk a bit more about what kind of businesses we're talking about in that sector, but they're businesses really that focus on people and a service more than a product. We also focus on other areas. Our heritage is in sophisticated engineering, and there is some overlap, particularly around engineering consulting services, project and program engineering. And then, if you like, our horizontal streams, we're specialists in human capital management, HR to most people. And that obviously has some direct relevance to the stuff we're doing in the service provider sector. A lot of that is about customer relationship management, CRM. Again, we're doing a lot of that in some of the service provider sector. This can be CRM service, which is obviously very relevant to service provider. This is where you're running some kind of ticketing operation or some kind of service desk where you want to schedule people, you want efficient billing and recording of time. We also have expertise in in retail areas and some business objects and SAP reporting. Plus, if you want, we can be a full outsourced partner for IT structure as well. And just finally, on the introduction, just to understand a little bit about the style of projects that we do. if you look at this diagram, what it's really meant to show is across the bottom axis, cost, effort and time, and up the vertical axis, innovation and differentiation. So obviously, the more complex the project, the longer it takes and the more it costs. Pretty much all of the projects we do these days, for both small and some of our larger customers interested enough, are based around the all-in-one SAP best practice solution. What this is in a nutshell is effectively a set of pre-configuration, a set of processes that you can deploy out of the box by loading your data and training your people. What it does is massively reduce the timescales, risk and cost associated with a traditional implementation of any major product. The nice thing is it's all repeatable, it's all been used before, and it can be tailored to fit your business. We try and get to what we call the 80%. 80% of what we've got in the box will fit your business, and then we talk to you about the other 20%. It's the 20% that might make you different. It might give you market differentiation, or it might allow you some kind of operational efficiency that you can absolutely justify why standard best practice doesn't fit you. And in that case, we configure the software to fit suit. Again, not customise, configure. Everything we do is using what people call commercially off-the-shelf or COTS software. And we're not at the top end of that curve, which is effectively where you chuck all the bits on the table and build something from scratch. And like I say, all of our customers pretty much go down this route. All of our customers don't find it restrictive. It's the software. It's the same price. If you ever want to use some of that other stuff that's up at the top end of that curve, you can do that, and there's nothing to stop you. So it's a very good way and a very good foundation to build what we would call a typical phase one project around. So let's just talk a little bit then about SAP solutions for service providers and talk about the kind of businesses that we're actually trying to engage with and talking to. And, what does this service provider terminology really mean? And it's actually quite difficult to have a sort of single sentence that encompasses this, because a lot of the businesses we deal with, while they're providing the service, they do it in a very varied way. But there are some key themes, I think we'd call them, that run through a lot of the businesses we deal with that certainly SAP and its capabilities can be enormously beneficial for. The project-centric businesses, these are businesses that may or may not have a product as such. It may be a services project, but it's something where you're running a major engagement with your client, and this can be both pre-contract and post-contract, where you've got reasonably complex logistics. If you use Microsoft Project today to run your contract, then you probably would look at some of the capability within SAP. SAP has the same capability as Microsoft Project, only it's integrated, and I'll talk a bit about what that means a bit later on. Equally, we're looking towards business providing support services. So this could be engineering type support services, could be service engineers, could be gas engineers, could be oil and gas, that kind of thing. Equally, it could be housing associations, anything where you're deploying people to do a set of tasks in a set time scale. And some of this may involve complex routings, it may involve complex planning from a timing point of view. It may even involve mobile devices and understanding where your guys are at a particular time and being dynamic in the way that you can reschedule during a working day if an emergency comes up. The other areas that we can help are the consulting business type organisations where they're really selling IP and people and expertise. And from that point of view, your traditional IT services business as well as some of the more design-based businesses are typical candidates. We have also dealt with where people are providing services using their people. So, for instance, security services, where people want a number of personnel on site at a certain time. We've also done that in the oil and gas industry around manning rigs. So where you're providing a team of people that may or may not require certain qualifications, but certainly the client will be buying a set of services off you. Maintenance support businesses, so again, this kind of strays into the housing associations or property management type things, or any major asset that you're providing a service to maintain and look after, really, understanding the configuration of that asset, understanding the work that's been done on that asset, and sending people to do it to effectively perform maintenance tasks. And finally, and they're probably not as a separate one, but we've done some work with not-for-profit organisations, really because they provide a service. I mean, they're funded differently to a commercial business, but in the end, if you're having to provide teaching services into Zimbabwe, for instance, or some of the African continents. So you're effectively having to find the right people with the right skill sets and deploy them into a region. And so, those guys, although they, like I say, they have a different funding model and probably a different ethic in certain areas, they are equal candidates for the capability within SAP. That's really just trying to give you a bit of a view about what we mean by service provider. And then really, what is it, what are we seeing in this sector? What is it that we're trying to use SAP for to help the people that we're talking to? Well, one of the major external trends, and I'm sure you've all seen this one, is obviously that people expect more for less. And I think that's true probably the world over these days. Certainly that's our customers. I'm sure your customers are the same. And this obviously means that, your margins are getting squeezed. You need to deliver more. Obviously, they're not willing to pay more, and quite often they want to pay less in today's climate. So that obviously means that we need to help drive efficiencies in all the non-value-add exercises. Equally, there's more complex commercial arrangements and risk in a lot of the contracts that we see our customers taking on these days. We've gone on the days where you can just bill people by the hour. They would want a service that may or may not have service level agreements attached to it, and maybe even penalties. And so the management of that whole process and that commercial engagement at the beginning, and certainly the ongoing maintenance, is more complex than it used to be. Good visibility of your current financial position and financial control, understanding where you are, bearing in mind margins can be quite tight, and just having a fully integrated solution set that gives you visibility of all the different costs and obviously all the different revenue streams, where you get one consolidated view. That's probably the most common requirement that we get across this sector. The other two are certainly about operational efficiency. Most of the businesses, when we engage, have very inefficient ways of, for instance, collecting time and billing. You've got timesheets flying all over the place, you've got people chasing them, then you've got to bill them, you've got to double check, and then you've got to check with the client whether the time actually matches the timesheet. And the whole process is laborious and very resource intensive, and then ultimately, is it actually correct as well? And the front end of that as well, scheduling the resources, having a tool that you can just lift off the times that are actually planned, the times that are actually delivered, the deltas, any agreements or disagreements with the client over that period of time, and then that can be fed through to an integrated billing engine and ultimately linked to finance is one of the big areas that we get involved with. The next are really around people. Clearly, in the service provider sector, people are very important. It's effectively what you're selling, their skills and their abilities. So there's a lot of capability around the HR areas that we often get deployed around skills development and tracking, training, appraisals, all that kind of stuff, as well as obviously personal development and monitoring, making sure that your staff have the correct certificates or qualifications in certain areas, whether they're working in hazardous environments or medical environments or pharma environments where you would lay yourselves open if your staff did not have the correct skills and something happened. And then the rest of them really are just that program and project control we touched on earlier. This is really about having a single window into a program or project and understanding from a logistical point of view what's actually going on in those areas, and understanding what, both from a finance and logistics point of view, what the current state is without doing 100 phone calls. And then the others are really kind of their IT issues that contribute to some of the others. Most people have obviously systems in place. Most people obviously have a billing system or a time recording system. The general view is they're not very connected, if at all, or you spend a lot of time making them work together. And as such, it's very inefficient. There's double entry going on, or there's lots of interfaces and all the cost of ownership associated with all those. So really what we're trying to do with SAP is address those kind of issues. It's not a definitive list, but it gives you a flavour, I think, of what the kind of issues that we see in our clients today.